Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Hello, everyone. Tracy here. Welcome back to another episode. I am so thankful to have you joining me for another fantastic conversation. But before we dive right in, a quick word from this week's sponsor.
The season's just about to get underway. What have you been up to?
I'm not sitting around. Off-season's busy. Got a couple rookies to train up, some new systems to learn. But we'll be ready.
And what canola are you growing this year?
We chose BY7204 LL, Brett Young's new Liberty Link canola hybrid. Our neighbor grew 7204 last year, said it's high yielding, it's got good standability, pod shatter tolerance, and strong defense against club root. It's a game changer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. Today, we have two amazing guests joining us. We have Dan Erdmann and Nate Clark. How are you guys?
Doing wonderful. Thanks for having us, Tracy.
Good. So these two gentlemen are from Farm Rescue, and I am so excited to have you on the program to talk about your mission and the work that you guys do. So why don't we dive right in? Can you tell us about Farm Rescue and what you guys do?
Sure, Tracy. Again, thanks so much for the opportunity to join you for this program. Farm Rescue is a one-of-a-kind nonprofit organization based in the United States. And what we do is fairly simple, but very powerful. We bring people, volunteers, equipment, and compassion to farm families at times of crisis when they're experiencing an injury, illness, or natural disaster.
Excellent. So I heard about you guys. I've seen some flashy advertising around, getting the name out there. Want to have you on to talk about the important work you do. While I was researching a little bit more, I found the beautiful story of your founder and how he had the idea for this. So can you guys share that?
Yeah, I'm happy to share that story. Again, our president and founder his name is Bill Gross. He was a farm kid himself, grew up in central North Dakota on a family farm, raised crops, raised cattle, and it became apparent in the 80s that there wasn't going to be an opportunity for him to take over the family farm. So his folks encouraged him to seek higher education, and Bill went on to become a pilot. And so that's kind of been his life for a few decades now. And years back, he was on one of his long over-the-ocean flights, and he flies all over the world, and was making small talk with a co-pilot about plans after retirement. Just again, the chatter that you have on a long trip, and Bill said he always wanted to buy a tractor and go farm to farm and just help families that are going through a crisis. And I don't know if they knew how serious Bill was about that mission, and he mentioned the idea again to another friend, and he said, well, Bill, why wait until retirement if you're truly passionate about that? And so that was kind of the initial seed that has grown into Farm Rescue. Bill, it's very much been a grassroots effort. It started with Bill just going from business to business, garnering support and sharing that mission with people and businesses, and it quickly gained momentum. A lot of people I think believed in what he was trying to do. And so he gained financial support, gained equipment sponsorships early on, and he gained some other volunteers to kind of help serve as the boots on the ground. And again, it started small. Farm Rescue was founded officially back in 2005. The first assistance operation would have been in the spring of 2006. Was a family out in western North Dakota, and they provided planting assistance for them. And that first year, I think they helped somewhere around 10 families with just a small handful of volunteers, as we were pretty relatively unknown at that point. And then I think they quickly realized this is not an isolated need. There's a lot of families going through similar distress, similar circumstances that need a hand up to get through a singular season and on to the next. And so more volunteers jumped on board. We've had more partners supporting this over the years, and the services have grown too. So we provide planting, haying, harvest support. We do some livestock feeding assistance and some commodity and hay hauling. That's all grown over time as that support has grown, and our territory has grown as well. We're up to 9 states now that we support through our assistance operations.
Wow, that's lovely. You know, as I was getting ready for this interview, I was thinking about it. We're farmers as well, my husband and I. I'm like, if something happened to him, okay, yes, there's people around, we'd muster through. But you look at that, as cattle can't wait to be fed. Crops can't wait to come off. When it's go time, right? So to have somebody there like farm rescue in that time of needs, super important. Okay, so I'm going to ask you this next question, and then, no, maybe I'll ask it now. That is such a unique idea of the founder. Like, I'm curious, did something, and maybe you guys know, maybe you don't, did something happen in his life that gave him the idea to want to do that? Like, did he see something in a community and them come together?
I don't think it was just a singular event that led Bill to have the idea. It was, he saw the hardships that his own family went through, especially in the 80s. Again, for them, it was more financial and just the usual hardships that come with farming and ranching. But again, you factor in an unexpected injury or illness, and that can make or break the farm. And I think most farmers know someone that's been in that type of circumstance. So it shows the importance of having good neighbors, and that's what farm rescue is. We're neighbors helping neighbors. I'll say we just come from a little bit further up the road.
Nice.
Yeah, Tracy, if I can add to
Yeah,
that just one
please.
bit, I think the experience of the 1980s is very informative for a lot of the work that we have, both as staff members and volunteers. It really was a psychic wound for many families and communities to see what happens when farms are lost. And knowing that quite personally, Bill understood the imperative of finding ways to minimize that experience, to lessen that, particularly when it comes to something that's quite human. We will all face an illness or an injury. Many of us will face disasters, and no one wants to see those contribute to one less farm.
I agree. Wow, it's pretty neat. That's quite the founding story. I love that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit in more detail. What types of crisis, where would farm rescue step in? People can apply, but what would be those situations where you guys would say, okay, here we are?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so we typically bucket our support in 3 cases. It's injury, illness, and natural disaster. But those buckets in and of themselves are massive. So we see all sorts of injuries. It could be on the farm accidents. It could be illnesses like cancer or a stroke or a heart attack. It needn't affect just the main farmer, the operator, but it could affect a family member, a loved one. Natural disasters of all sorts, from wildfires, such as you've seen in your neck of the woods, to what we've seen in Texas and Oklahoma and Nebraska early in the year, tornadoes and storms of all sorts. We describe our crisis support as broadly as possible. One of the things that we are keenly aware of, Tracy, is that each one of these cases, in addition to being an injury, illness, or natural disaster, is inevitably a mental health case also, because these traumas inflict substantial burden on the farm families that we face. And so we see all sorts of things in the nearly, now it's over 1,100 farm families that we've supported.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to ask one detail type question because I'm a detail type girl. So is there a cost to the farm families? I know we'll go into that a little bit more and how that all works, but is there a cost, or how does that work?
No, there's no cost beyond what they would have typically spent on their own inputs.
Wow.
So what we do is we bring people, these volunteers who themselves are very often retired farmers or operators. We bring them in, we pay for their transportation to the site, we pay for their room and board and their safety, of course. We ship the equipment. We don't want to add another burden onto the family. And so it's our privilege to provide this support free of charge.
Wow, that's unbelievable. That's so cool. You mentioned volunteers. Let's go there first. You guys call them Angels in Blue, which when I read that, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So do you want to speak to the volunteers? And then I'd love for you guys to share some stories. That is our culture, right? We learn and we share through stories. So I'd love to hear a little bit more. So Angels in Blue, tell me, please.
You bet. Again, they really are the lifeblood of what we do at Farm Rescue. We call them our Angels in Blue. You'll see both Nate and I wearing our navy blue shirts. Our volunteers are out there, rocking that same apparel as they're serving as our boots on the ground. And there's some incredible stories of the families we've supported over the years, but the volunteers themselves have such incredible stories too. As Nate mentioned, as you might imagine, it's a lot of retired farmers, even current farmers taking time away from their own operation to come to our neck of the woods and help a complete stranger in a time of crisis. And it takes a very special person to do that. But, in addition to those in agriculture, it's, over the years, we've had pilots, pastors, military veterans, law enforcement officers. For years, we had a NASA rocket scientist that would come up every spring to support our operation. So it's a wide range of backgrounds, but everyone shares just that same mission, that same core value of wanting to help a neighbor in a time of need, and no matter how far they have to travel to do that. And these people are just incredible because they're a lot of times, as Nate mentioned, there's difficult circumstances that they're walking into to help these families. Sometimes it's an ongoing battle with cancer, someone in the family that's going through that at that very moment. So they're not just, labor on the farm. They're serving as, counselors for some of these people, and just the bonds that are formed in such a short amount of time. Those are some of the incredible stories of farm rescue over the years, is just how tightly knit, these families and these volunteers get in just a short amount of time. They may only be there for a few days or, a week or two with these families, but these bonds last a lifetime. These, the volunteers that were there are exchanging Christmas cards with these folks years down the road. They're still making phone calls to catch up. A lot of times they'll stop and visit a family that they helped years ago if they happen to be passing by and in another season that they're helping. So just truly incredible people, and we all say we have the world's best volunteers, and I wholeheartedly believe that.
That's pretty cool. It's cool. I assume you have people lined up in each of the states and areas and that type of thing. Is that what you guys do?
We have volunteers signed up from basically every U.S. state. I guess throughout our history, I think we've had 49 of the 50 states represented with folks signing up. It's a couple hundred a year that are ready to go at a moment's notice. And what we typically do is there's obviously a sign up process for that as well. And we work closely with our volunteer database. What's your schedule look like? When are you available? What are you comfortable doing? If it's planting or if it's harvests or running a baler, whatever it may be. And where are you comfortable traveling to? A lot of times we're looking more locally if we're in, Kansas or Nebraska for volunteers that might be a little closer to the family that we're assisting, but that's not always the case. It's a lot of times has to do with who's available and if they're willing to travel there. And most times they're willing to go wherever they're needed.
Very cool. I could also see retired farmers really being big into that, because does a farmer ever actually want to retire? So if you could still stay involved and help with that level of impact, like unbelievable, right? That'd be like farming on steroids, I would think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I think talking to some of the retired farmers that come out here and do this, it's maybe a little less stressful when
Yeah.
when it's not your own operation. Obviously, they treat
True.
every operation as if it were
Right.
their own.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's a little less stress when you're just out there running the equipment and trying to get the job done.
Yeah, and just to give you a sense, we were at the Farm Progress Show in Boone, Iowa,
Mm.
several days ago, and one of the most common visitors to our booth, it was retired farmers who
Mm.
wanted to find a way to continue their passion and do so in a way that would protect the industry and protect communities.
I love it. Sorry, that was probably a bit of weird wording, farming on steroids, but being able to be involved in farming, something you love, and then having the impact on somebody's life when they're in that situation, that's kind of like just heartful farming.
It's not a weird word at all.
Okay.
We see a lot of amplification and growth and emotion behind it because
Yeah.
these experiences are both very personal and communal at the same time. And so people, I mean, I think most people in farming communities, and you've mentioned this before, they've often been able to rely on their neighbors for support. But as farming has gotten tougher, and as the challenges that farm families face, there needs to be an outlet to give back. And so there's something very special about what Farm Rescue has been able to provide and strengthen in communities that are that sometimes feel like they're being pulled apart.
Beautiful. Okay. I have two places I want to go. You guys decide where you want to go first. Details, the states, how somebody can apply, and all of the details that go into that, or stories. Which one would you like to chat about first?
I'll jump in with some of the details because Dan is our best storyteller, and he can regale you with some really important stories from our experience. So in terms of logistics, as Dan had mentioned, we support currently 9 states. We started in North Dakota. We've expanded to Minnesota, South Dakota, Montana, Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, Kansas, and most recently Wisconsin. I think that might be 9, though my count might be a bit off. And in terms of the logistics, that's an important word for Farm Rescue because I'm 10 weeks into my job in working with Farm Rescue, though I've been a fan since about 2017, and it is a logistics nonprofit. Essentially, again, what it does is it ships people and equipment to be operated safely and compassionately to farm families across the Midwest. And how do farm families find us? It's usually by word of mouth, but they can reach us through our website at farmrescue.org. And the application process is intended to be very easy. There's both an online version, or if they need support and assistance in completing it, they can reach out to one of our talented staff members to help out. And essentially, the information that we request is fairly easy. We need to know where you are and what you need help with. We need a little bit of information about the crisis that you're facing. And then the decisions are ultimately made by Bill Gross and the board of directors about the cases that we approve.
Okay. And I assume in some cases, some of this could be pretty time sensitive, I'd imagine.
In many cases, it is time sensitive because it's one of the things that you've mentioned. The windows of operation for planting and harvesting are so vulnerable and so fragile that sometimes a crisis will hit on the eve of this, and we do our best to stage equipment and to find equipment. We've depended upon a network of John Deere dealers to help us with equipment in the past. Sometimes we even rely on the family and their equipment themselves to get the work done. And so you're right. This is in many respects, it is a disaster response organization, and we pride ourselves on being able to support families as best we can during the toughest times.
And just to add to that too, again, a lot of farmers and ranchers are very prideful people. It's not always easy to ask for help.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that farmer, or even a lot of times it's a spouse or a relative, just a friend reaching out. They don't want to ask for help unless they absolutely have to. And a lot of times that comes on very short notice. So we understand that. We do whatever we can to mobilize volunteers and equipment and be there when they need us.
Wow. That's not easy on you guys either, right? That's pretty much like disaster response, which is stressful and quick and organizing. Wow.
It is. And to Dan's point, the one of the roles that we strive to serve is to destigmatize asking for help. I mean, the obstacle, the burden that we have to overcome, it's independence and pride. On the one hand, in rural communities, we find them to be utterly generous. They want to help. And at the same time, they're reluctant to ask for help for themselves.
Right.
And so one of the things that we try to do in our model, apart from making it easy and being approachable and experts in ourselves and using volunteers who are from agriculture in most cases, is we try to allow for healing and compassion in communities. Sometimes it's hard to ask for, and this concept of what we provide, again, it's more than the planting, the haying, the harvesting. As Dan was, it's counseling and it's social cohesion and it's community revitalization. So many things happen when we're lucky enough to pull up with our trucks and with our machines to help a farm family.
That's important, you know, and I know farming's never been easy, never. And I mean, we have so many advancements and so many great things that make it easier, but it seems like nowadays farmers are just taking one hit after another, just in markets and day to day and weather. It's just having people there in your corners, super important, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you for covering logistics. I wanted to get that out of the way. Let's chat about some of these stories and different situations that you guys have helped farmers with.
Yeah, I'm happy to tackle some of that. And as we kind of spoke about before, you see a lot of different circumstances that lead to farm rescue. Being there to provide support. It is, unexpected injuries on the farm, falls from buildings, just being injured by equipment, illnesses, those cancer treatments, and just some devastating circumstances, whether it be the main operator, a spouse, a lot of times even a child going through those cancer treatments, and we're there to provide support. I've been with Farm Rescue a little over 7 years and work more on the marketing side of things. So I have an opportunity to visit with a lot of the families that we're supporting while we're actually there. It's heading out with a camera and hearing their testimonial and those circumstances that led to us being there. And each one of them is impactful for me to hear those stories firsthand. And obviously there are a few that stick with you in that amount of time, and the hundreds of families that we've helped. I think back to I think it was 2017. We were helping a young farmer and rancher in South Central North Dakota. He was working on a baler. And again, it's a dangerous profession. You probably know where I'm going with this. And had a glove on. He became entangled in that machine. He didn't have his cell phone on him, and he had an 8-month pregnant wife in the house. And so his first thought was, I have to free myself because there's no way I can get her attention. So after 45 minutes, he managed to free himself from that machine. Again, I don't even like to think about what that involved. He got a tourniquet on his arm and he calmly walked to the house. And again, the entire time he's only worried about terrifying his 8-month pregnant wife. So enters the house, calmly tells her she needs to call 911, explains what happened. And I think for me, what was so impactful about that story, first and foremost, he taught farm safety. So that just drives home the point that this can truly happen to anyone. No matter how careful you are, sometimes accidents just happen on the farm. And secondly, he was one of the most upbeat, positive people I have ever met in my life. And in those circumstances, I think it's easy to fall into that dark place, that woe is me. How's life going to go on? he was right back at it. The first thing he said to me was, well, the silver lining was it wasn't my dominant hand. So I've got that going for me. And it was all about relearning that new life, relearning the entire operation with one arm now. And years later, their operation is still going strong. Obviously, their child is growing up now, and he's fully involved in their life. But again, it's stories like that just show, I think, the perseverance of farmers, no matter how dire the circumstances sometimes. And so Farm Rescue came in and delivered some much needed cattle feed for them during a very important time of year. And I realize I get a little long-winded with these stories, but there's another that sticks with me as well. And another kind of feed delivery scenario. It was 2019. There was some catastrophic flooding in the state of Nebraska, in several areas along the Platte River and other areas. It was a 6th-generation farm down around Verdigris, Nebraska. And father and son operation, and the father, who was in his 70s, I think at the time, got a phone call in the morning that the dam had broken upstream from their farm. So again, truly a catastrophic event. It was the sheriff that called, and he said, what do you do in that instance? I grabbed my wallet and my cell phone, and we left. And the aftermath of that, they had never, again, it's a 6th-generation farm. They had never had water in their house, and that wave of water and frozen ice chunks, it was early in spring, it destroyed their entire farmyard. It cleaned it out. It wiped it clean. They lost all of their bulls. They lost all of their calves. It's, the farmland itself just scattered with debris that was left from the water after it receded. And, just talking to them and the pain in his voice, I still get choked up talking about it. And, again, it's a circumstance where, yeah, it'd be easy to walk away from something like that, but him and his son never really gave it a second thought. We're going to rebuild. And they did. Again, it's years later, they have rebuilt those buildings. They moved in a new house. They started over, and they stuck with it. And again, it's just the tenacity of farmers and ranchers in some of the worst circumstances you can imagine is something that we see all the time. And a lot of times, Farm Rescue coming in, whether it's planting, haying, harvesting, delivering feed in some of these instances, it's really a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things. But sometimes the smallest gestures can have the greatest impact. And I think Farm Rescue is proof of that.
Wow. You just made me think of that saying, to one person, you may be the world. I'm going to butcher it, but for you guys, you're just saying it's a drop in the bucket. But for that farm at that time, you were like the world, life-changing for them, right?
Exactly.
Unbelievable. I'm on social media. You have me thinking like about mental health, and I'm on Twitter, connected to a lot of farmers. There's a lot of situations, weather related, accidents that happen, and you see the devastation, and then your heart just breaks for these people, all this stuff that happens, and you want to help, right? You sit there and go, I wish I could help, but
Yes.
you can't. You're so far away. So it's so neat to hear that there's people and organizations out there that help, right?
You bet.
Wow. Okay. I'm glad I didn't cry.
Well, if and I don't want to make you cry, but if you want to see the stories in living color, Dan, he mentioned that he goes and visits these farm families. The purpose of that, in addition to offering additional care to the farm families, is he records documentary style short films on many of the cases that we have.
Oh.
And one of the things that I would invite you and your listeners, and we can provide you with links and other information, is to go to our YouTube channel to see some of these families. And it's both heart-wrenching and inspiring. And it will be fuel for people to find ways that they can help Farm Rescue or other organizations that serve farm and ranch families.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I'll include those links on the show page for you guys. So
Terrific.
if you're watching, check the show page. Okay, so I know you have the Angels in Blue. So opportunities. I want to do a call out. Obviously, our show is North America wide. So we have listeners, viewers from everywhere. And we're a tight knit community, even though there's a lot of us and we're a small part. So I'll do a call out. If there's farmers that want to get involved, if people want to donate, and I do believe you guys hold some events as well to fundraise. So if people are interested, how can they get involved and help out?
Yeah, sure. And I appreciate it because one of the things tied to the logistics is that our nonprofit organization, we depend upon volunteers to be our Angels in Blue, but we also depend upon donors. We've been lucky to earn some terrific business partners that we've had, many of whom have supported us since our very beginning, almost 20 years ago. But a lot of the challenges that are facing farm and ranch families economically are also hitting us now. We've seen donations decline, and we've seen the cost of our own operations increasing. And so we're always looking for ways to find more volunteers, more financial supporters, more advocates for our work. One of the first things that you can do is you can go to our website at farmrescue.org. You can find volunteer applications. There'll be a donation link. We also have a terrific Facebook page where we will provide updates on the work that we're doing and ways for people to get involved. And then we are still a very much a homespun, home-brewed organization. You can call us, actually. We've got a mighty team of about 10. And one of the best parts of our job is actually reaching out to and hearing from people who want to support our work. And so you can find our contact information on our website as well.
Excellent. Okay, gentlemen, you shared some stories. If you want to share some more, please do. I know you are a mission-based company. Let's end. If you do want to share more stories, go ahead and do that. But let's end with a note about the legacy you want to leave as an organization. So stories if you have, and then we'll end there.
Sure. Again, there's hundreds of families that have been impacted, and even despite similar circumstances, I think each and every case is a little bit different than the last. And obviously there's a lot of situations where your heart breaks for these families and what they've gone through. And we had helped a family in I think Central Iowa last fall that the husband and wife of this operation, both pastors in addition to farmers, and they have been foster parents for 15 years, fostering over 20 children. They've adopted 4 children and have a biological son of their own. Just the most giving, incredible people you will ever meet. But found themselves in some pretty difficult circumstances last year. The husband was having some major headaches, and again, kind of dragged his feet on going in, like a lot of farmers might. And it turns out he had brain abscesses from a bacteria that had gotten into his brain, and he was having stroke-like issues. He had a seizure on the table when he got to the hospital. It ended in brain surgery. So again, it's basically a traumatic brain injury that he's trying to come back from, and it had taken him months already of recovery. And I still don't know that he's completely back to normal this year. But in the midst of all that, his wife, who was a 10-year cancer survivor, developed another type of cancer from the radiation she received 10 years ago. So again, her husband is relearning everything, how to read, extremely fatigued after about 45 minutes. She's now doctoring and having surgeries for this, for cancer, and just being able to be down there for them. It's one of those stories you never forget. They were referred to us by a commodity organization in the state, and that's so important to us too. Is just sometimes it's those groups that that have members that they're aware of that can reach out to us too and let us know of those circumstances. They had a tremendous community of supporters. And I think back to the interview I did with them, and they truly got the notion of, yeah, the neighbors are here, the neighbors can help us, but that's a tremendous burden for them as well. They have their own operation. Again, those windows are so small for anything, planting, harvesting, whatever it may be, that they didn't want to add to the burden for their neighbors. And so that's why Farm Rescue exists. We're an extension of that. Like I said, we're still neighbors. We just come from a little bit further away, and we want to treat each operation as if it were our own when our volunteers come in there to get the job done. And it's meeting truly incredible people like that change our lives for the better, change our volunteers' lives, and I think a lot of people connect with that. So again, many stories that could be shared. It'd be days worth of of stories to share with you. And you talk about the legacy that we hope to leave, and I think our legacy is tied to the legacy of the farms that we're helping. It's about extending livelihoods. It's about putting them in a position to leave something for the next generation of farmers. That's the whole reason Farm Rescue exists. We're helping farm families in times of crisis because we want those operations to continue. We know the importance of each and every family farm to their community, to the world. Again, farmers feed the world, and every single one of those farms is important. So our legacy is extending the legacy of those family farms.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I feel like a kid. Tell me more stories. Don't we all love a story where people
Yes.
come together to just help our neighbors? And that's what the ag community is. And you guys being there for agriculture, it's amazing. It's like, tell me more, tell me more.
Well, invite us back and we will.
Okay, a whole hour of stories. I think that'd be a beautiful episode. Well, gentlemen, this was a beautiful episode. I want to thank you guys, and I'm sure you hear it a million times over from the farmers you help, their family, communities, but thank you for the work you do. This life-changing for farmers that need it. Thank you, guys.
Well, and thank you for being such a strong advocate for farm and ranch families in North America. It's really important. So we value you.
My pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen. If people in the audience want to learn more, donate, get involved, can you do one final call out on the website and how they can connect with you?
Yes, please visit us at farmrescue.org. There'll be contact information there. You can apply to be a volunteer. You can join us as a donor, or learn more about our organization and ways you can advocate on behalf of farm and ranch families in the United States, and maybe someday in Canada too.
Here we go. Dan, Nate, thank you, gentlemen, so much. You guys in the audience, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, like it, share it, and get it out there so all the farmers in North America can hear about the great work that Farm Rescue is doing. Thanks, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.